Darragh from Invictus, an Irish record label which is into its 10th year now, and we're just going to find out basically a quick history and maybe a quick guide into the future for Invictus. And in case anybody's wondering, this is what their product looks like. It's a flyer for the product, but this is what the product looks like. Okay, Darragh, how are you doing?
Not too bad, Paul, and yourself?
I'm pretty good. Now, you last night were doing selling merchandise for Primordial at the show in Dublin.
That's right.
And also with a stall for Invictus.
That's right.
Now, considering this recession that people are talking of, the way things are, and I know some people have suffered from the online side of things. The online side of things has been kind of running very smoothly for you for a long time.
Yeah.
It still is.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, I expected a pretty big fall in online sales owing to the recession, but this past month I have seen it still even out. Still a lot of people buying stuff, but I think from my side it's more or less down to the fact that we sell things pretty cheap.
Yeah, which is a big advantage, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of take advantage of the economies of scale and everything.
Exactly.
And it was basically, if I'm not mistaken, your first release was in '99, right?
Yeah, well, first release came out in January of 2000, but production on it began in '99, and that was the Slaughter Lord compilation CD and LP.
Right, yeah, and I suppose with Slaughter Lord, it's a band that had a name and I suppose quite a bit of respect for many years. And when you put that out, you were just starting absolutely from scratch, and so I imagine you went to the kind of blind.
Completely.
And how did that Slaughter Lord thing, considering that you were so new to the whole thing, was it successful enough for you to, obviously you did go on to more stuff, but was that as successful as you'd hoped in the beginning?
Probably, excuse me, probably even more successful because the channels of distribution I had at the time enabled it to get into shops, get advertising, a load of magazines. And on the back of that as well, in 2000 you had this whole retro, necro, thrash and death and black metal thing that was pretty prevalent. So a lot of labels were digging up stuff from the 80s that had a name. So people wanted those Slaughter Lord recordings. I mean the scene is completely different today because we have downloading MP3s. That wasn't a factor back then. So people couldn't access stuff that had been released on tape in the 80s on CD, so people were willing to to buy it, and they wanted to have it complete collections. So yeah, I did exceptionally well actually for the time. It wasn't really an indication of how things could and would grow because we had a different distribution and network back then and starting out, which helped.
Was that Hammerheart?
Yeah, that was with Hammerheart, and they helped distribute the releases then, but that took a lot of the experience and responsibility directly out of my hands. So I had to learn all that later on. Because
you had quite a break, because you did the Slaughter Lord, you also did Solstice. Was that number 2?
That was the second one, that came out in the summer of 2000.
Yeah, and then you had quite a break, I remember, I'm not sure when it was, and then you came back with a 7-inch, was it Razor of Occam or something?
Vomitor.
Vomitor, yeah.
And then Gospel of the Horns.
Okay, and after that you really think it seemed to have stepped things up quite a bit?
Yeah, I mean...
or after the break at least?
Yeah, I had a focus of what I wanted to do, and basically I got a call from Gospel and they said, listen, do you want to do the first full length? And I was like, fuck yeah, definitely. So I ran with that. That proved to be the beginning of a whole new era, really.
Yeah. Was that kind of when you came back to full steam? Was it the Gospel?
Yeah, the Gospel really... basically opened up the doors to go full steam ahead,
And I believe the first Gospel album was quite successful.
Yeah, I mean, we shifted a lot of copies of it. We had pretty good distribution for it, and it was something that people anticipated a lot because the mini LP and mini CD came out in 2000, and then the CD came out in 2002. So there was, people were waiting for it, people were looking forward to it. So yeah.
And actually, they were a band who, without any kind of big machinery behind them, actually through their own steam and yours as well, they did a European tour in 2003.
Yeah, we organised a big 3.5-week European tour which spread all over the continent. It was crazy, it was insane.
You did that, you were like tour manager on that, right?
Yeah.
And how was it?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, one or two shows didn't have a huge crowd, but I mean, we played shows in Helsinki, which was packed.
You got a lot of people in Helsinki.
Yeah.
I mean, a few hundred.
Yeah, it was like 150 or 200 or something like that. And I mean, the gig didn't start till 11 o'clock at night, and it was manic.
You did a few shows in Finland and that, right?
Yeah, Turku as well, and there was the Hellbangers Festival in Koblenz in Germany.
Yeah.
There was shows in Belgium, Holland, Italy, one in Dublin as well. Yeah, we travelled all over the continent. It was really good.
And these days with Invictus, now I know that at a certain point you more or less quit working full time to kind of put more time into the label. Now you're studying and still working. Yeah, okay. So when you decided to go full time into the label, which is quite a risk, of course, and then you did it, and was it something that you thought that it just basically couldn't support you on a full time basis? Is that why you went back to studying and working, or?
Well, running an underground label has its limitations one way or the other, and you have to be realistic. It's a labour of love. It's not a career. If I wanted to do a career, I mean, I could try and release stuff that like Century Media Nuclear Blast does. You know, that would be a different angle again altogether. But secondly, being based in Ireland, you're on an island, so you're limited by that in itself. You can't get in a car and drive whatever, 100 miles to a big festival, set up a stall, make a couple of grand, and go home. It's not like that. I mean, if you're based in the Netherlands, you can drive to Germany, Belgium, you can drive to France, whatever. I mean, there's so much to choose from, so much to do. You can't do that here. So you're automatically offset by limitations. So I realised that when I gave up the job, but I needed to push the label. I needed to give it a kick in the ass. I needed to do it and see how far I could go with it, and it grew like way more in that time I left.
So it was advantageous for the label for you to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. It was essential to do it. You know what I mean? It grew, it expanded, more interest. I mean, I was able to run a full-time mail order, you know, and you know, get more exposure for the bands as well. Yeah, and it also seems to me from the times when you had, for example, Gospel of the Horns, they basically, as well as playing here, they also kind of came over on vacation as well. I remember Cosy stayed with you. Yeah.
So you have I mean, being that the label is very grassroots and everything, do you tend to have very close relationships with the bands? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, having a rapport with the bands for me is essential, and I mean, Gospel of the Horns have been great to me, and without them, Invictus could never have gotten where it has, and I owe them a lot. They were offered other deals around the time. Yeah. Osmos stepped in over me to offer them a full-length deal, and they declined and decided to run with me instead. That was awesome. So yeah, I mean, that was a real windfall on my part, and I mean, those guys' loyalty to me and to Invictus is something that, I mean, means a lot to me, and it has my respect, you know. And do you think that Gospel was one of the main catalysts to kind of give Invictus the step up the ladder? Oh, absolutely. Without them, it could have never gotten to where I've gotten now. You know? Okay, as we've heard.